Coming up in today's show, Roundup lawsuits move toward settlement. Air Force One gets a makeover, and Shiffrin wins big in slalom. Plus, in Podcast Extra, the best states to retire revealed. A deadly avalanche near Lake Tahoe, and J.D. Vance questions an Olympic athlete's choice. All of these stories plus so much more in politics, finance, sports, and more. And here's the trivia question. What motto appeared on the very first U.S. penny, minted in 1787? I'll give you a hint. It's not what's featured on today's pennies. It's Thursday, February 19th. This is the Flyover Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Flyover Podcast. To those of you who start your mornings with us every day, thank you. And if you're joining us for the first time, we're glad that you're here. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, take a quick second to do that so you never miss an episode. I'm Ayla Brown, your weekday host, and let's take off with the biggest headlines of the day. Pharmaceutical and agriculture giant Bayer is proposing a $7.25 billion class action settlement to resolve tens of thousands of lawsuits claiming its Roundup weed killer caused non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The proposed deal filed in St. Louis Circuit Court would pay out claims over the next 21 years to people exposed to Roundup before this week who have been or may be diagnosed with the cancer. Bayer has faced a wave of litigation since acquiring Monsanto in 2018 for $63 billion and has already paid more than $10 billion in verdicts and settlements. Roughly 67,000 claims remain. The company continues to maintain Roundup is safe and admits no wrongdoing. The U.S. Supreme Court is expected to hear arguments in April. The U.S. Air Force confirmed it will repaint Air Force One in President Trump's preferred red, white, dark blue, and gold color scheme, replacing the light blue and white design used since the Kennedy administration. The new look will appear on the Qatari-donated 747, the two next-generation Boeing VC-25B jets currently under construction, and four C-32 aircraft used by the Vice President, First Lady, and cabinet officials. One C-32 has already been repainted and is expected to be delivered soon. Trump first proposed the redesign during his first term, but it was reversed under President Biden over concerns darker colors could cause overheating. And finally, a comeback story on the slopes. Mikaela Shiffrin dominated the women's slalom at the Milan Cortina Olympics, winning by 1.5 seconds, the largest margin in an Olympic women's slalom since 1960. It marks her third career Olympic gold, making her the only American alpine skier to hold three. The 30-year-old hasn't medaled at the Olympics since 2018 and went 0 for 6 in Beijing, a stretch she later called her lowest point in the sport. After finishing fourth in the combined and 11th in the giant slalom earlier this week, she entered her final event without a medal, then delivered the fastest opening run by nearly a full second and never looked back. An emotional Shiffrin, whose father died unexpectedly in 2020, said she felt his presence on the mountain, 12 years after becoming the youngest Olympic slalom champion in Sochi. Here's what's happening in politics. At least a dozen Democrats say they plan to skip President Trump's State of the Union address next Tuesday. Instead, they'll attend a People's State of the Union rally on the National Mall, hosted by Move On and Midas Touch. U.S. brokered peace talks between Ukraine and Russia ended in Geneva after just 2 days with little reported progress. President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of prolonging negotiations amid ongoing disputes over territory in eastern Ukraine. President Trump's Board of Peace is set to meet in Washington on Wednesday. Member states are expected to announce roughly $5 billion in pledges for rebuilding Gaza, along with personnel commitments for a proposed stabilization force. Texas Senate candidate James Talarico raised $2.5 million in just 24 hours after CBS declined to air his interview with Stephen Colbert, citing FCC equal time rules. Colbert later posted the full interview on YouTube, where it quickly gained traction online. Here are 3 podcast extra stories that you will not find in our Flyover email edition. A new study ranks the best and worst states to retire in 2026, with Wyoming taking the top spot and New Jersey ranking last. The list factors in affordability, quality of life, and health care, including cost of living, taxes, Social Security income, climate, recreation, and access to long-term care. Among the flyover states, Florida ranks highest at number 7, followed by Colorado at 9. Tennessee comes in at 17, Arizona at 22, North Carolina at 30, Virginia at 32, and Texas at 35. And then toward the lower end, Ohio ranks 38 and Georgia 41. The takeaway? The best retirement state depends on whether you prioritize lower cost, warmer weather, or stronger healthcare access. And by the way, you just heard me mention many of our flyover email editions, and you can sign up for free at jointheflyover.com. Authorities say 8 backcountry skiers were found dead near Lake Tahoe after an avalanche swept through on the final day of a guided tour in the Sierra Nevada. One person remains missing. 6 others survived and were rescued roughly 6 hours later, aided by avalanche beacons and text messages from at least one guide. A powerful winter storm had dumped several feet of snow with gale force winds and sub-freezing temperatures, and investigators will now examine why the trip continued despite the forecast. And finally, an Olympic moment that's drawing political reaction, and maybe some reaction here from our listeners. Vice President J.D. Vance questioned why freestyle skier Eileen Gu, born in San Francisco and raised in the U.S., competes for China, saying, quote, "I certainly think that somebody who grew up in the United States of America, who benefited from our education system, from the freedoms and liberties that make this country a great place, I would hope that they want to compete with the United States of America." Gu, who's 22, has won 2 silver medals at the 2026 Winter Games in Italy, and she said representing China can help grow the sport there. So, the comment section is open for business. What do you think? Still to come, the FDA reconsiders Moderna's flu shot, the 49ers go global, and your dog's real age might actually surprise you. All of that and so much more after a word from our sponsor. Thank you so much to Cozy Earth. February always feels like a really good time to show some extra love, whether it's for someone special or for yourself. And Cozy Earth makes that so easy. As you probably remember, I had 2 sets of their pajamas and I love them so much that I got myself another pair. And I love slipping into them at night because they instantly feel lightweight and so soft. And they're made from this viscose from bamboo material, so they drape beautifully. And they help you sleep cooler without overheating. It's that perfect mix of cozy and breathable. And their classic cuddle blanket has become our go-to on the couch. It has this really plush, comforting weight to it, the kind of softness you automatically pull close. It's an easy little luxury that makes everyday moments feel special, whether it's a movie night or a quiet morning. I don't get many of those with 2 kids, so it's usually the movie night for me. Everything Cozy Earth makes comes with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, so you can try it risk-free. So if you want to share a little extra love this February, head to CozyEarth.com. Use my code FLYOVER for up to 20% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure you mention you heard about Cozy Earth right here. Celebrate everyday love with comfort that makes the little moments count. Now to finance. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has reversed course and agreed to review Moderna's application for its mRNA flu vaccine, just weeks after it initially rejected it. Moderna's stock jumped more than 6% on the news, and the agency is expected to make a decision by August 5th. The average 30-year mortgage rate fell to 6.17% last week, its lowest level in about a month, prompting a 7% increase in refinance applications. Even so, rates remain roughly 8% higher than they were at this time last year. A federal judge dismissed a lawsuit against Buffalo Wild Wings brought by a customer who argued that boneless wings implied bones had been removed from real wings. The judge disagreed, writing that the complaint, quote, has no meat on its bones. Here's how the stocks did yesterday. The Nasdaq rose 0.78%. The S&P 500 gained 0.56%. The Dow added 0.26%. Bitcoin fell 1.68% to $66,359. Gold climbed 2.32% to $4,496 per ounce. Silver jumped 4.99% to $77.11 per ounce. Oil rose 4.19% to $64.94 a barrel. The big stock move went to Immunity Bio. It surged 41.86% after winning European Union approval for a new treatment targeting non-muscle invasive bladder cancer. In sports, IMG Academy has agreed to pay a $1.72 million settlement after accepting tuition payments from students allegedly tied to a Mexican drug cartel. The Florida-based athletic powerhouse says it has since strengthened its compliance and financial screening procedures. UCLA Bruins men's basketball coach Mick Cronin sent forward Stephen Jamerson II to the locker room during a lopsided loss to Michigan State after a late hard foul resulted in a flagrant call. Cronin said after the game he was, quote, thoroughly disappointed, adding that in a 25-point game, quote, you don't do that. The San Francisco 49ers will play 2 international games in 2026. They're scheduled to face the Los Angeles Rams in Melbourne, Australia, and will also serve as the home team for the NFL's Mexico City game, with the opponent still to be announced. And finally, a major absence next season. Kyrie Irving of the Dallas Mavericks says he will miss the entire 2025-26 NBA season as he continues recovering from the knee injury he suffered last March. For all of your Olympic coverage, including the amazing overtime win by the men's hockey team yesterday, sign up for today's National Flyover email edition for free at jointheflyover.com. Now to science and technology. The moon is still shrinking. Researchers have identified more than 1,000 previously unknown tectonic ridges across the lunar surface, evidence that the moon continues to contract as its interior cools. Scientists say that ongoing shrinking could trigger additional moonquakes in the future. And your dog may be older than you think. Scientists at UC San Diego found that a 1-year-old dog is biologically closer to 30 in human years, and a 5-year-old dog is roughly equivalent to 60. The findings definitely challenge the old multiply by 7 rule that many pet owners grew up with. So, how old is your dog? Ooh, mine's old now. Here's the etc. section, our way of sending you on your day with a few additional headlines. A Florida congressman is proposing a compromise in the long-running clock debate. Move clocks forward by 30 minutes permanently and stop changing them altogether. The Daylight Act of 2026 aims to split the difference between standard time and daylight saving time, though sleep experts say even a half-hour shift could still disrupt natural rhythms. A runaway pig named Penelope wandered into a North Carolina home in search of snacks and eventually surrendered to deputies after a brief standoff involving a pack of crackers. In New Jersey, a dump truck sent to repair a sinkhole ended up falling into it instead. Of course it did, landing nearly vertical with its front half sticking out of the street. A second sinkhole opened about 30 feet away, swallowing a nearby car. It's crazy. And dramatic video out of the Italian Alps shows an avalanche racing down the mountainside at the Courmayeur Resort, sending skiers scrambling to escape. 2 people had died at the same resort just days earlier. Before we get to the results of yesterday's poll question and the trivia about the U.S. penny, we have a word from our sponsor. Thank you to Native Path Creatine. Let me ask you something. Have you noticed it's getting harder to stay strong as you get older? Things like, carrying groceries or getting up off the floor just take more effort than they used to. A lot of people assume that's just aging, but it's often something called age-related muscle loss, and it starts earlier than most of us think, especially for women. The good news is muscle loss isn't inevitable. Creatine, one of the most studied nutrients in the world, has been shown to support strength, energy, and even brain function. And it's not just for athletes. Come on now, your muscles and your brain both both rely on energy, and creatine helps your cells produce that energy more efficiently. I've started incorporating native creatine into my routine because I care about staying strong long term. And despite the myths, creatine has been studied for over 20 years with research showing it's safe for healthy adults when used responsibly. If you want to learn more, there's a free resource called The 3 Rules to Reverse Shrinking Muscles. You can read about it right now at getnativecreatine.com/flyover. That's getnativecreatine.com/flyover. Or all of that info is in the show notes below. Here's the results of yesterday's poll question. Have you ever sleepwalked? Coming in at last place was how I voted, which was, is that real? And 12% of us said that. 26% said yes, and coming in first place at 62%, you all said no. Yeah. Thank you so much to those who voted. Are you ready for the question today? Here it is. Do you have a dog? Either yes, no, or I used to. I have an 8-year-old Pekingese named Brait, and I've never really considered myself a dog person, but I walked past him at a pet store in upstate New York one day, and I instantly fell for the little guy. I brought him home on New Year's Eve morning and named him Brait, short for celebrate. Now, I want to hear about your dog. Drop your story in the comments, and while you're there, cast your vote. I will read the answers in tomorrow's episode. Oh, too bad there's no more pennies in production. Here's the trivia question. What motto appeared on the very first U.S. penny minted in 1787? The answer, mind your business. That was a saying of Benjamin Franklin's, who helped create the Fugio cent, as it was called. The motto, In God We Trust, didn't appear until after the Civil War. Now you learned something today. And that also wraps up your Thursday edition of the Flyover podcast. If you value quick, unbiased updates to start your day, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And pass the show along to a friend who likes their news without the noise. The week's almost behind you. Keep up your momentum. Take care of what's in front of you. And I'll be here to start your Friday off right. Thanks for flying with us.